Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, KMO. Happy New Year, everyone, as well as Happy Black History Month. Today, we'll be talking about mentorship. We'll see you back soon. Welcome. Thank you so much for being back at the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, KMO. Tonight, we will be talking about I'm your life coach, relationship coach, and also podcaster here. And so it is Black History Month. And to celebrate Black History Month, we also want to give back. And one of the ways we give back is also talking about how we can give back. And so I have one of my good friends here from the Atlanta area. Well, not from the Atlanta area, but he lives in the Atlanta area. He is a father. He is a new father to a new little girl. And he also is starting some great things down in the Atlanta area that I want him to share if he would like. But thank you so much, King, for being on tonight and us having a conversation about boys to men. Do we need mentors?
Definitely, man. Pleasure to be here, man. As he said, I am the founder and executive director of a new school starting in August, Liberation Academy. So we're going to serve grades 5 through 8. So if you're interested in enrolling or just taking part in anything we're doing, just check out our website, liberationacademy.org, and love to connect with you.
Okay. Awesome, man. So doing great things. Talk about this new fatherhood thing. Tell me about, how you feeling about having two on your team now.
Man, I enjoy it, man. It's a lot though. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart. If you working, like I say, I guess they always say there's no perfect time for kids, but
right.
But there are better times than others. And I think me and my wife are doing well. Both my kids are doing well. I'm getting used to saying children instead of child.
Yeah.
That's weird. My mom said, "How are the kids doing?" I said, "I got one."
Exactly.
Yeah, no, everything's going well, man. Just wish I had a little more sleep, but that is what it is.
Yeah, man. I hope you'll get used to it soon. And they'll get older, and then you'll be complaining about I wish you were young again.
Right.
So, thanks, man, for being on. We had a conversation in 2021 about arranged marriages, actually. And so we talked about arranged marriages, how you were able to see, I think you were even like going back and forth with me. And then once you talked about your actual situation, I was like, bro, you in arranged marriage. You don't even know it.
Right.
But that's how, that's for whatever reason to get to that place is almost kind of what we're talking about tonight, because, I'm sure there were people that were influential in your life that allowed you to be who King is now. And so I know you'll do that in the work that you've been doing and the work you'll continue to do, as well as being a father. So tonight we want to talk about boys to men. Do we need mentors? And so this applies to everybody, of course, men and women. But when you hear the word like mentor, what do you think of? What's the definition that you have of a mentor?
For me, a mentor is somebody who provides guidance in a multitude of different ways. You can have a mentor in your professional life, you have a mentor in personal life. They can overlap and do both. But if somebody just provides guidance and provides that extra voice or extra level of accountability when it's needed, because the thing is, I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to understand that you do need a mentor and to seek one out. So it provides guidance.
And so I'm just going to piggyback on what online talks about, and it's the actual definition of what a mentor is. So a mentor may share with a mentee or prodigy information about his or her own career path, as well as provide guidance, as you mentioned earlier, motivation, emotional support, and role modeling. A mentor may help with exploring careers, setting goals, developing contacts, and identifying resources. So it's not exactly what I was going to say verbatim. However, I think with me, when I think about that as well, going off of what you said, mentorship is definitely guidance. We all need guidance. I know we have our parents, or some of us don't have our parents, but there has to be a way in which we find a way out of our tough times, and both of us being in spaces where we can help other people. A lot of the times, I think we're able to kind of reflect on what we want to see with our own children, what we want to see with our own lives, and how they can compare much of the time. So what do you feel like, going into the next question, because I know we define mentorship, I mean, what mentor is, do you have a mentor?
I do.
Okay. So tell me about the mentor. You don't have to necessarily say what it is, of course, but what does that look like for you? And why? Why do you have a mentor?
So for me, he's actually a former supervisor of mine, and it wasn't something where we formally said, "I'm going to be your mentor." It was something where I saw that I liked the way he moved, and I saw that he gave good advice, even when not solicited. And when I did have questions, he always provided good advice as well, whether it be for personal or professional.
Mm-hmm.
So from our professional relationship, it turned to a friendship, which turned into mentorship. And even now, as I navigate through personal and professional avenues, he always provides different little tidbits on how to address certain things. I ask him questions about different things, but he does a good job of exemplifying what it is to lead, and what it is to how to manage yourself in personal atmospheres as well. So
talk a little bit about movement, right? I think I know what you mean, but like, if I'm a young guy just starting out, and what age were you when you think that you recognize that this could be a mentor in your life?
I was in my 30s. I think
Okay.
Yeah, I was in my 30s. So it was I guess I don't know if that's considered late or early, but I was in my 30s, and
Okay.
for me, I'm never a person that shies away from asking questions.
Okay.
But once again, he was somebody who I felt was a safe place to go to for questions in multiple times.
Right. And so what were some of those movements that you felt like this gentleman had that stood out to you?
Initially, it was as I say, he was my supervisor, he was my principal.
Okay.
So as a principal, he was in a position where I wanted to be. So for me,
makes sense.
what I always do is I pay attention for people who are where I want to be. I pay attention to how they got there. I pay attention to the different, like, for example, something I would do is I might LinkedIn stalk somebody. I might look at where they are, and look at their way to get to where they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I used to do that, and I still do that now. So if people are in the same position where I am or beyond, I like to see exactly how different people maneuver to get to where they are. And for him, he was in a position where I wanted to be, and I always like to see how people maneuver when they're in those positions.
Right.
And he was open about sharing those things without me asking. Like I guess he saw something in me and wanted to nurture that, and I was open. I was open to it.
Right.
I'm not prideful enough to not take advice.
Did you feel like it was more of an organic thing, or would you say it was something that you were seeking out?
It was organic because it wasn't something I was seeking out, because I think in that situation, it wasn't something I thought or knew that I really needed or benefit from.
Right.
But when somebody tells you, all right, when you make this step right here, this is going to happen. So put this step here, put this step here.
Right.
And then you see that it's working. Well, okay, let's continue let's continue this. So
absolutely,
it was something that happened organically, and it still does now.
Right. When you grew up with your father. I didn't. And I tell my story all the time because, my mom actually knew that she couldn't raise a boy by herself. So I was in like a lot of males groups when I was a child. You know, she tried to do a good job of putting me around guys. I mean, being from Florida, you grow up playing football, sports, running track, something. So you're always around some type of athletes. And so, and then you had that camaraderie. But it was
Right.
also a time where I felt like in middle school, she knew that was the changing face of what you needed to do to either you're going to be on a trajectory to go to work or go to college. And
Right.
there was the only thing that I could do was go to college in my house. So with that said, I had the opportunity to be around a lot of different men, my coach being one at the time, and also a professional, I want to say, organization that supported a lot of Black men and women at the time. But at the time when we started, it was just males. And so we used to have conversations all the time. And at that time, this gentleman was the president of the organization. And I was like 14 years old. And so I remember the summer, I was always working at a fast food joint and, grinding and making sure I had some money because I didn't want to ask my mother for money at the time. So me working that job, he offered me a part-time job inside with AC. And anybody that had jobs with AC, you weren't working at a fast food joint or anything like that back then. It was like heaven. So, I was inside and just giving me the opportunity to work with somebody to develop some of the skills that I learned was phenomenal. And it was like I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And so I didn't know what it was going to do for me. And so later on when I got in college, I recognized that, dang, this guy took me under his wing, and I recognized that he was somebody that I was looking to for guidance. And so I always try to pick people pick people who, like you said, who are on the same path in which I want to go on. Um, Even if the guys are married, not all the time, but most of them were married. Most of them had a good head on their shoulder. Most of them wore a suit. Most of them, had a nice car or a decent car, or they just exemplified like respect when they walked
Right.
into a room. And so for me, that's something that I always desired to be like. And because you're adolescent, you still trying to figure stuff out. You don't know who you are. So that particular guy. But once I got into the work field, just like you, there was a principal that we saw eye to eye. I don't know what it was. It was almost like we were speaking the same language, but he was 30 years older than me. I'm sorry, 20 years older than me. But the things that he was saying and speaking about, I understood, while some people didn't. And we gravitated to each other. He pulled me in his office. We had one-on-one conversations. And before you knew it, it was like, am I like, is this a mentor?
Right.
But it made sense because I think certain men move a certain way. And also that allows for you to have a safe space. They have a safe space, believe it or not. And that was about 15 years ago. And even until this day, I still have those relationships with those men, and they become my we'll talk about it in a minute, but personal relationship, work relationship, as well as professional work. I'm sorry, work, personal, and relationship mentors. So I think they all tie in together, but in different ways. But they're usually all the same men too. So
Right.
that was my story, and I think I think it would hit somebody, because sometimes I feel like, especially this new generation, again, we'll talk about that later, they don't even know how to go about doing that, or too prideful. I know you mentioned earlier, like being prideful to even ask for support. That's even a thing now in society. So I think it's something that we have to really think about, in which we can give back, but also teach people, especially young men, how to go about having those relationships. And even with us, being able to talk and give that back to young men, hopefully they'll be a little bit more receptive. um, so when you think about like what comes to mind for you when you hear the word mentor?
Um, it's gonna sound like a tape recorder, again, but
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I think just having that safe place to get answers, having that safe place to get answers, to ask questions, to receive guidance, and sometimes maybe just to observe. I think a lot of times there's a lot of power in observing, but I think when you observe, I think it's good to have those words behind it. But yeah, I think once again, just guidance and just provide a lot of times they help provide a blueprint into different avenues, whether that's through marriage, whether that's through professional, whether that's through friendships. I think that they just provide a lot of assistance in there.
Right. How do you feel about how do you feel about your peers? Do you feel like the peers that you have, do you think they have mentors as well? Do you feel like you're different in that sense?
I don't. I think that I know a few of my friends do have mentors. Like I said, I know we talked about that before. I know some of my close friends, they have mentors that they go to, whether it is a brother, whether it is somebody that I have friends that work in the political arena, and there's other politicians, more seasoned politicians that help usher them through their career and tell them some of the pitfalls that they need to avoid. But I think at this stage in our lives, a lot of my friends, the 35 and up, that sounded weird saying that, 35 and up crew. Yeah, so we a lot of my friends do have mentors, but and a lot of us, and I know a lot of us do try to reach back and help others at the same time, because we've been helped so much in that arena.
Yeah, and one of our listeners said, mentors are critical to growth. And especially during the time that we live in now with social media, everything's being monetized. And so you should never have to pay for a mentor. And I think it's different between a coach and a mentor. So I'll just say that out loud. Me being a coach, it's taking is very situational. And also being in a safe space to do so and not being judged with it. But a lot of times I don't even think people at the place these days to even ask for help. What do you think about that?
I would agree. I think a lot of times people like the idea of doing it on their own. And because I know folks like that, where they'd rather go through it on their own, make the mistake on their own, and won't ask for help or won't seek out assistance. Which I understand it, I get it. But I think that for as many people that do seek out mentorship, I think there's a lot that do enjoy not even enjoy, but may not be comfortable with seeking out that guidance.
Do you think I think some of it, and you can, based off your experience too, do you feel like a lot of it has to do with just being afraid to say that you don't know? Because that's essentially what it is. Like, we're some hard-headed, I think I know everything type of guys. However, I think we do that because of the growth, because of the the level of determination and even our heart and how we move, but also the fact that the humility that comes with that. It's a difference between saying everything, but a lot of times I feel like I know a lot is because I asked for help and through somebody that I sought out. A lot of people don't know that. Just they see me, but they don't know I have 5 other dudes that I talk to, and that's been poured into me, that I've been having long conversation with for years before coaching was even out. You know what I'm saying? So what is your take on that?
I agree. I think that it's a matter of,
because I'm sorry to cut you off, because think about this. Somebody listens to you like, man, this guy thinks he knows everything. And, like, because you have a degree and this and the third, but like, they don't know what you've had to do to be able to speak confidently about some of the things you've done. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about, we do in our lives, you can't necessarily find it in a book. You get a lot of that stuff from people, it's like teaching, right? If you want to be a teacher, if a child wants to be a teacher, who else to learn from except for a teacher?
Right.
Like, do I really want to go into this field and go into debt because of whatever? Or do I want to ask this teacher and shadow this person because that's essentially what it is too.
Right.
It's shadowing somebody to learn and to see if this is the right field. So what about you?
No, I agree. I think a combination of either and or a lack of humility or too much pride, I think is
there you go.
why a lot of people, or why some people, I'll say a lot, why some people may not seek out that mentorship or assistance or guidance or receive it. And because the thing is, a lot of times you may have people that want to pour into you, but you might not be in a position to receive it. And for whatever reason that may be, because you feel like for whatever reason, I don't want to pass judgment, but for whatever reason that may be. But I think that, as I said, lack of humility and too much pride are a big factor in that. And you've seen it with probably some of the students you deal with. I know I've seen it in some students that I deal with. But then as they get older, they see that
what you were saying was the right. Yeah.
What you're saying is the right thing. So now, to me, a lot of my I still keep in contact, ironically, with a lot of my former students. And actually, for my first class that I ever taught, a lot of them, a lot of them are now grown with kids in their careers.
I know.
It made me feel, and granted, I started teaching at 23. So now I see them celebrating their 29th and 30th birthday. They're grown. So now I get the random text, because I haven't changed my number since I taught them. So, or coached them. Get the random texts, the random calls, and I get them more as they get older. I get them more often versus when they were younger. So I think it comes with age. It comes with falling on your face a few times, and understanding that you do need some assistance. So, but I definitely agree.
What would you look for? I know you said these are the things, because again, subconsciously, like I said, I didn't even know this is a mentor. Like I kind of fell into it. But we also are probably men. We're also men that probably, when you give back, you can see yourself in another young man immediately,
right?
Or a woman, right? Would you say so?
Oh yeah.
So, and then you may have a conversation that you may have with this particular person. You're not going to have with majority of everybody else, because this particular young man you gravitate, or you see you in them almost.
Right.
And so if that's the case, which is what probably happened at your job, that's why he's your mentor now. What would you say to those young people or people who are who are still tiptoeing around it, that they need to look for in a mentor?
Great question. I would say
even two things. Yeah, there's two things.
Look for folks who are on a path or where you want to be.
Right.
And then who walk what they talk, who do the things that they're saying, like that consistency. You can't follow after somebody who's not a man of their word or a person of their word. Like that's even in leadership, that's weak leadership, to say one thing and not do it. To say do as I say and not as I do, that's not that's poor guidance. So I'd say look for people who are on a trajectory or at a place where you want to be, and then people who are consistent in the way of life and the things that they say, who they are. Of course, nobody's all of who they are when they're at work.
Right. Yeah. Right.
When you close the door, if you preach in integrity, you need to make sure you living in a life of integrity behind closed doors. Right. Can't talk about being faithful to your woman if you're cheating on your woman, and then you're talking about cheating on your woman. Like, that's not doesn't add up. Right.
And that person definitely wouldn't be the person you would go to for relationship advice.
Right.
But you talked about where you want to be. That's a great one. Another one I always say is find somebody that's grounded. Right. So I know that's grounded in who they are. That when I hear that, humble in some of the things that they're speaking about, and how they're speaking to you. And I believe confidence can sometimes be looked at as not being grounded, but also if they're able to show you some of those things, like you said, within the things that they're doing every day. Another thing is, and I may get some people who don't like this one, but it's not usually a family member, because your family member loves you. They're going to give you advice regardless. It might be their heart might be in it too much. And so sometimes I always feel like people should find mentors who are who are not necessarily your family members, and who can be very objective with you, but also in an honest way. And so be very honest. And so my mentors are not my family members. I love them like they are.
Yep.
However, because they didn't have to do it, you know. And I remember one of them saying to me, he was like, you know what? Somebody did it for me. You know, somebody did it for me. That's the reason why I'm here. So pay it forward. And so that's
Yep.
why I try to make sure that have those conversations every now and then. So some of those young men or women can come back and say, dang, you know, I really needed that. Because sometimes they don't, like you said, that person pulled you in. You didn't even know what you would, you know, you didn't even know what the conversation was going to lead to, but for whatever reason, they took the step. Like they took a step of faith that you were going to receive what they were going to give you. But I think they had to see where you were moving to.
Yep.
My mentor told me, you know, he wants me to call him by his first name. I just can't. And so he always says, you know, for the longest, you know, I've always said I appreciate the fact that the knowledge and the conversations that, you know, he gave me. And he said later on in life, this may have been like 10 years later, he was like, you know what, you provide the same thing for me. He's like, believe it or not, just us having that conversation, it allows me to be filled as well. So I think it's important. Sometimes we get past that, you know, but you might be pouring in because they may need you. One of my coaches, who I consider one of my mentors, we don't talk as much, but we reconnected maybe like right before the pandemic. And, you know, I really like broke down and told him how much I really appreciated him pushing me when I was 15. Because when you don't grow up with a father and, you know, you kind of got to be tougher, or, you know, it's you don't learn that as much when you're young about manhood. I believe I really, really, really needed to push. And, you know, sometimes we don't know our true potential. We'll stop when we feel like it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But they see something in us and they push you a little bit harder. And I think that's something also you should be looking for in someone for guidance, because they're not going to tell you what you want to hear.
Correct.
And I think that's the hardest part, King, is people don't want to hear, you know, bad things these days or what they need to work on. They all, you know, social media has killed us so much in the sense of, you know, thinking that everything's all good, and it's not. And it's okay not to be, because that's the reason why, you know, that's how we can have growth. So I wanted to touch on, so we talked about, like, you know, what you look for in a mentor. So as a mentor, I'm sure you're coming upon that, or you have some of those kids that you work with in the past. What are some ways in your, you know, even your peers, you would say how you can give back? Because you work in a space where you can always give back. But, you know, like, again, I grew up with what is it, 100 Black Men and all these other organizations from fraternities and things of that nature. Again, you were an anomaly because you were around a lot of people who had their fathers. We both know that's not the case.
Right.
What would you say to those men like us, how we can go about giving back and the importance of it? Why do you think it's so important for us to give back to those young men?
I think I'll do the why it's important to give back, and then how. I think why it's important to give back. I think it's because in some of the arenas where you are, where I am, where some of the folks that we seek guidance from, there's not many of us there. So it's kind of a duty, and it's kind of all the dials, but it's our duty to reach back and bring others to where we are, or to throw them past us. So I think so. That's why I think mentorship is so important, because we go through all these different experiences. You gain all this knowledge. You get all these wins for folks that have accumulated all these wins, and you sit on it, and you're doing nothing with it. Whereas you can pay it forward and give it to another young brother, another young lady behind you to understand your pitfalls, understand your successes, and either walk that same path or walk a different path or change their trajectory and move forward. And I think in ways that you can give back, I think you gave some good ones with looking at some of the organizations that are in your city, like you said, 100 Black Men or the Emerging 100. Those are in all these major cities. That's a great organization. I know a lot of good brothers that are part of those organizations.
Right.
Also, just look within where you work. Look within where you work. I think, or in your community. I think where you work is a good one. If you see somebody that has potential, if you hire somebody, if you're in a position to hire somebody that has potential,
right.
Don't let your relationship stop with that person just coming in the door and giving them directives. Help nurture their skills to eventually move into your seat. Who you hire for positions need to replace you. If you have an organization, or if you work an organization and you don't have anybody at your place of work that can replace you, and you haven't built anybody to replace you, that falls on you. That falls on you. So it's our duty to find those people that we can feed. Where you work, in your community, depending on where you live and where your community is set up, community centers. I think volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club is a great one. Those are organizations that
another one, Big Brother, Big Sister. Forget about that one too.
Big Sister. Like there's a lot of different organizations you can partner with, but I think the easiest ones are probably people that are within arm's reach that you probably haven't considered, or that need help, but you push somebody else on them versus giving them the guidance yourself. So those are different things those are different ways I think that people can get back. And there's many others, but those are the ones that come to mind right now. I know for me, when I'm at work, I try to do that. Whether somebody has a question, or if I see somebody that I know can be pushed, I try to do what was done to me and provide that push, provide that guidance. Hey, don't do that. Or, hey, try doing this. Or if you see something, go ahead and get it. So.
Yeah, man. I want to touch on that in 1 second. I want us to come back to how we approach that, because I think that's important as well. But the support, like the different supports, and there are 3 different things in which mentorship, I believe, areas that we all need supports in. And the first one is a personal one, right? Personal relationships. So I know for you, I know I'm going to speak for myself. For me in my personal life, just things that we've gone through as men, even like, losing a loved one, pushing through sports, pushing through academics, those type of things. They're different. Women get a lot of support with those different things, because I'm not saying that it's easy for them at all, but we're not allowed to show our emotions with some of the things that we may have to go through. So I feel like it's so important for us to have mentors in those space in your personal life. If you're looking for, I don't know, a new house, if you're looking for how to budget, how to find, finances and things of that nature, like that's personal. And so certain things that I've learned from guys, I asked one of my mentors, I said, man, how do you save? And he gave me a book. That was his give back. He gave me a book. He didn't give it to me. He told me the name, and I read the book.
Right.
How many people would do that? Like will actually take that next step and actually start reading the book. And so I feel like when you really want to get it, you really want better out of your life. I said, personal life. Are there any things that you can think of or examples in your personal life growing up where you had to seek out some knowledge, or you would just say, you know what, I wish I would have had this?
So for me, opportunities where I could seek out knowledge, I definitely say probably for all the above. I think for finances, because the thing, our parents give us so much. Our parents give us a lot, but at the same time, there are different things that you want and you get that you realize you need more knowledge about as you get older. So for me, a lot of those lessons came from trial and error, but with finances and relationships, I got a lot of that from brothers that I met at work that were in good relationships, that were managing their finances, because all my peers were making the same mistakes. So a lot of brothers that I knew that were older than me, that were I was working with, if I saw that they were moving in a certain way, I'd ask, and it paid dividends in a lot of different ways.
Because I don't think you have to. I mean, I think that's the reason why we have mentors, right? You don't necessarily have to make the same mistakes that they did. You
Right.
don't have to, that would like catapult you a little bit more so you could be a better brother, be a better man. And so when you talk about like, I know you talked about your parents a lot, but even like we talked about work, like even at work, I think you should have a mentor at work. And we talked a little bit about from both our experiences and what that did for us. I gave my example. You gave your example of even having that. What about relationships, though? You talk a lot about, again, you having the support from your dad and your mom, but are there other ways in which you've sought out information or guidance and resources while you're in your marriage and when you were in a relationship, especially because we talked about before, you started so early and most guys don't. So were there any older guys that you picked their brains outside of your father? And maybe you didn't even know it was mentorship. It was just, them giving you some jewels, man. So
with relationships, younger, I think a lot of my relationship advice came from, I could probably say, friends of mine who were older. I had a lot of friends that were older than me. So my friends that may have got married, may got married younger than me, or who were having successful relationships, or things of that nature. I would ask questions, or I would watch how they would handle certain things. As I got older, I was getting in positions where I was around a lot of people that were older than me as I was moving up, and they would drop jewels on me all the time in regards to mistakes that they made. And even now, I think one of my good friends he's younger than me, but a wealth of knowledge. And for me, when it comes to certain relationship things, I go to him with relationship questions. So for me, it's not a matter of, a lot of times it's not a matter of age. It's just, if somebody is, as I said, if somebody's in a space and you see that they're successful in that space, you ask questions. And I think I've gained a lot from my friendships and then through work relationships and through connections that I've had through other relationships with people that have dropped jewels on me.
Okay. So I want to combine this last question, man. We've been talking about a lot of different things, but thinking about like the state of the world we're in right now, right? It's much different, I think, with even in the last 10 years. But how do you feel like the younger generation would even listen? Do you think that they would even listen to us? Because I feel like, I think we learn humility because even though we're fairly close in age, but there was a time where there was humility. And I think when we have social media, when everybody's smiling, everybody's feeling good, everybody's on a boat, everybody's, by the beach or whatever. What can you tell me if you're not doing this?
Right.
I'm good because I'm able to travel around the world. But how can you tell me this? Like who gives you the right to go about giving me information based off of, some of those things? Do you feel like the younger generation will listen to, as you're getting older, a father of two, or because we said the same thing, right? Hey, uh, how do you know, like, what, even growing up as as your parents say stuff to you, you're like, and then when you keep on living, my grandma used to always say this, keep living, you'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you get older, I'm sure some of the things that your father said to you, you're like, dang, now I'm that guy. Do you feel like this next generation growing up, do you feel like they have it in them to really listen to some of the things that us as older, not older, but mature men can give them? And because I see a lot of guys that push back,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not enough for us, but we still need to be able to do that.
I think the answer is yes, but I think it's I'm optimistic, but at the same time, like this generation, they have so much information at the drop of a dime, at the tip of their fingers. If they want to find something out, it's accessible. You go to Google, you go to any online resource, you can get it. So there's a lot of self-reliance based on the fact that, I can just look it up.
Right.
But I think life will teach some. I think life will
Right.
teach some that maybe I do need to seek out assistance from this brother, this sister, or this person right here. I think life can do that, but at the same time, I think with this generation, it's a lot harder just because they have so much access to information. And then on top of that, when you look at our generation, you look at folks our age, there's not a lot of folks our age that have mentors or seek out.
That's
So
true. That's true.
It's not a common thing. So for the younger
Right.
generation,
That's true.
Common,
That's true.
I don't think it's going to be common. I think it takes, as I think it takes a level of self-awareness and humility to seek out mentors. And I think you got to fail a little bit to realize that, or you have to, as I said, that awareness needs to kick in where you know you don't know anything. So with this generation, I think it's there. I think it's possible, but I think that it's a lot more of the show me what else you've done. It's a lot that they're gonna want you to kind of prove it a little bit more. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible. And as I said, and I base that based off of my experience with students. I think students will listen and glean information from you based off of your ability to prove that you know what you're talking about, you care, and that you can articulate what it is you've done and how can I get to that point.
Right.
So this generation, I think this generation has a lot. For as much as people say they're lazy, there's a lot of hustle in this generation too. Because we have a lot more of young people who want to be entrepreneurs. They want it real quick, but
that's it. Yeah, they want it tomorrow, right?
They want it tomorrow. But for those that are willing to listen, for that special group, I think that there's a window there. I think there's a window there, and I think with social media and platforms like this, there's more opportunity to provide that.
Yeah, man. I hope so. I'm a little optimistic as well, but I don't think enough of us are doing the saving and having the conversation.
I agree with that.
I think that some of us, my grandma's generation, you couldn't go down the street unless you got 5 other people who stopped you for having a level of accountability. These days, hey, everybody's selfish, and I don't think that enough of us are doing that in the spaces that we are. I hope that we do, because I think it would help out a lot. It will help out a lot in our communities, our relationships, our work environments, our personal lives, but we don't have enough of us doing this. So we have to spread that word, man. You got to talk to them. You have any mentees? Like, you should probably get one. And it doesn't have to be like, an official big brother, big sister. It could be, like you said, an arm's length distance, and just conversation with a young guy or young lady about something, so that they can be able to pass that on. Because if not, I don't believe we have enough. We have a lot of information, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think the information that they're getting is so overwhelmed with the information that they're not getting to it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how to stop that, how to get to that point. Hopefully it will get to that point at some point, but we got to keep having these conversations, man, and making sure that people go out and get the proper mentor. The proper mentor.
I agree.
You cannot get if they're not going where you want them to go. Now, sometimes one of my mentors is a professional mentor. He is not my relationship mentor. And you know what? He told me that. He was like, I can't give you no advice on relationships, but I can talk about, work and work-life balance. So thank you, King. Again, how can we find you on social media and with your school moving forward?
So to find me, my Instagram is I use the school. So Liberation Academy ATL. You can find that on every platform: Instagram, social media, Twitter, and Facebook is where you can find me. Of course, for Instagram, I'm a King 105 is my Instagram handle. And then please check out the website, liberationacademy.org, for information about the work we're trying to do, or that we are doing in Atlanta, and the things we have coming. So looking forward to speaking and seeing some of you. But I appreciate y'all having me for the time tonight.
Thank you, King. You're a blessing, man. Again, every time I call on you, you're there. You inspire me as a Black man too, man, and can keep moving. Every time I talk to you, it seems like, we never stop a beat, even though we may not speak to each other all the time. But I know that you're doing good things. I'm gonna support anything you got going on down there, man, and just keep doing what you need to do to uplift our community. So thank you for doing that for us, as a Black man, as well as a brother in our professional life. And thank you so much for listeners for listening on mentorship. Continue to listen. We have a whole bunch of series coming up on February the 20th. We'll be talking to young men about just some important things they need to be doing when they date. And so please check us out February the 20th on the platforms, as well as Eventbrite which will be coming very soon. So have a good night. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for coming onto the show. You can find us at tomorrowsmen.com, on Facebook at Tomorrow's Men, and on Instagram at Tomorrow's Men. Please click and subscribe to the button below. I'm your host, KMO. Until we meet again, know we love you, work with us, be with us, and know we're coming from the heart.